What defines the strongest man in history? And they'll all say the deadlift. Who can pick up the most weight from the floor to his hips? And that man's me. My beats per minute was over 200. Blood pressure was unreadable, and I went blind in the middle of my eye. I was able to create a scenario in my head. I wasn't lifting 500 kilo off the floor. I was lifting a car off of my kids. And that's the only way I was able to do that lift. Out of 7 billion people, you are the strongest. You are the alpha, you're the one. I was just absolutely obsessed. Literally wasn't seeing my wife and kids at all. My nan, who I was very, very close to, I spent a hell of a lot of time with, was diagnosed with cancer. And I made the promise to my nan on a deathbed that I would win the world's strongest man one day. I love you, Nan. I love you. I did it. Yes! Yes! If I had never achieved it, then I'm letting her down. That's one of the main things that kept me going. You know, I've turned my life around, and as you say, you know, I've been there, done it, and I've become the world's strongest man. 18 years ago, I was locked in my room thinking about and trying to kill myself. With the power of belief, achieved amazing things and proved to millions and millions of people that no matter where you come from, what you do, hard work and dedication can get you places.
The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs. Sharing our vulnerability. Overcoming our fears. Transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go?
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is...
Boom! Think about it. 500 kilogram deadlift. That's 1,100 pounds. And that is the world record held by Eddie Hall, who's our guest today. Pretty incredible the feat he accomplished. Even more incredible, he beat his previous record of 463 kilos. And up to now, 3 years later, no one's come close to beating it. And that's the incredible thing about Eddie, but he didn't stop there. He decided he wanted to become the world's strongest man, the top strongman competition. And he did it because he promised his grandmother on her deathbed that he would pursue this goal and finally accomplished it. And look, Eddie is no stranger to depression. When he was 13 years old, he got thrown out of school and he spent 18 months in his bedroom without ever leaving, contemplated suicide, but he came back for that and worked 1 year solid to train and win the world's strongest man in 2017. Eddie is an incredible guy, wasn't afraid to get emotional in this conversation. He's the world's strongest man and the world's most emotional man at the same time, and we need more guys like this to talk about depression, to talk about goal setting and accomplishment and physicality, and I was just so happy to sit down with Eddie. So sit back and enjoy the world's strongest man. This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Eddie Hall, the athlete, strongman, and actor better known as The Beast. In 2016, you set the deadlift world record at an incredible 500 kilograms. That's over 1,100 pounds, in what you called, quote, the most incredible lift in human history and one of the most dangerous things I've ever done. 1 year later, in 2017, you won the world's strongest man competition, having tried for 6 years and finally accomplishing a lifelong dream. Today, you spend your time recording television projects, YouTube shows, promoting strongman and mental health awareness, and you're filming a new documentary with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Eddie, welcome to London Real.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Great to have you here. First of all, what's it like being in London versus Stoke-on-Trent, and for people around the world that don't know the difference between the two cities, what's it like?
Stoke-on-Trent's it's a nice place. It's got its lovely areas, but it's also got its bad areas. It's a good place to grow up, to be honest. It's very central to the country. You want 2 hours, you are anywhere in the UK pretty much, and then you compare it to London, that's just all cogged up and takes you an hour to drive a mile. I find London quite stressful. I really do.
What's stressful about it?
The traffic, the getting around, the people. There's too many people here. For someone like me, I can't walk down the street without being noticed. So I find it quite hard to get around in London. So
people stop you.
Yes.
Do they know who you are, or just when they see you, they know you're somebody?
No, they know who I am, and I can't use the tube. For that reason, so I have to use sort of private transportation, so I have to use taxis, and even if it's like a 12-mile journey across London, take you 10 minutes on the tube, I have to go in a car because I just can't.
You'll get swarmed on the tube.
I can't risk it.
Okay, isn't that crazy? I had Ken Livingstone, the former mayor of London. He can take the tube, but you can't.
No, I literally can't. Literally cannot. Too stressful.
Would you compare Stoke-on-Trent, like in America? What's the equivalent? Is it kind of like the Midwest where you have like these kind of values, and is it slower, and is it more about like who you are and less like bi-coastal, or is that not the best example?
So where would I compare it to?
Yeah, like in America, is it kind of like?
Geez, that's a tough one. I've been a lot of places in America. I would say it's got a very sort of Virginia feel about it, probably of all the places. Just quite relaxed, quite spaced out. Okay. People are nice. Okay. Yeah.
All right, but you're traveling like a madman now. You're all over the world.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah, geez.
And you told me earlier, of the last 180 days, you spent how many in the States?
I've spent just over 100. So out of the last 180, I've spent just over 160 in the States. So yeah, it's been pretty tough. And obviously that's a lot of traveling, a lot of hotels. I'm a bit fed up of it now, to be honest. I've had enough.
Yeah, well, all right. Well, I want to hear more about what you're doing with television and the movies, because it's pretty exciting stuff. I think, Eddie, we're going to have to start with the deadlift. And I know you've probably told this story a few times, but people right now watching this have probably already seen a few clips of that from the beginning of the trailer here. I'm watching that moment. And I was, it was captured on video, which is amazing, with close-ups and slow-mo. And I had this crazy thought, and tell me if I'm way off here, but you know how back in the day they sent a space satellite way out into outer space, and they put like a record on there, right. And the record had like opera and like recordings and like all these things that defined the human race. Right. And I was just thinking, like, do you think they should put a snippet of you in the deadlift on there? Because this is, this is human accomplishment. This is a human being doing something that, as you've said before, 7 billion people, you're the only one that's done it. This is accomplishing, overcoming, pain, lifelong of like depression, being told I wasn't able to do this. I mean, it's a moment, right? You ever think that should go out in space for the aliens to see first?
Possibly. I'm not sure if the aliens would sort of relate to what we lift on the planet. Maybe, I don't know. But it sure was a magical moment within the strength industry. There's been hundreds of thousands of world records set within the strength industry. But when I came along and said I was going to pull half a ton off the floor, the reaction was very negative. No one believed it could be done. And when you think about it, it was such a ridiculous statement back in 2015 when I said I was going to pull the half ton off the floor. And even the promoters, just, I said to them after a strongman show, I said, I want to pull half a ton off the floor, but obviously I want to get paid for it. It's like, how much do you want to put forward if I were to pull half a ton? And these are seasoned promoters, they've been in the game years and years.
Who know what Hollywood, who know how to promote.
Who know how to promote, who know what's capable. And they just looked at each other and were like, yeah, how much do you want? It was just seen as the impossible. I put it on Facebook and Instagram, and it was all negative. It was like, it can't be done, impossible. Just shut up, you're an idiot. You're just talking shit, you're just selling tickets. And
this was part of your game plan, because this is how you motivate yourself.
It is, isn't it? It is, yeah, in a way. I like to put things out there are impossible, that are extreme and would, for 99.999% of the planet, would think, no way, that's just not doable. And then I love to say that, get the reaction, and then be like, right, I'm going to do it now. And it's that negativity that really does fuel my fire. It's literally throwing coal onto my fire to train harder, to dedicate my life to things and go out and get them, like I did with winning the world's strongest man. The half-ton deadlift was exactly the same. Just the reaction was just all negative.
And you can feed off negativity, because a lot of people say today, ignore the haters, stay positive. You've seen all the unicorns and the rainbow memes and things like that, but not for you. You like the negativity and the naysayers.
I do. Well, I did. I do enjoy the sort of negative comments. I mean, when I was a very young sort of athlete, you're talking, well, my very first contest, I was 19 years of age, and I did my first strongman show. And I think Facebook was just starting up around then. You'd been around a couple of years, maybe. I can't quite remember. And did my first contest. I remember I came back from that, and I said to everybody, my mum, my dad, my brothers, put it on Facebook, told my friends, I'm going to win the world's strongest man one day, watch this space. And I said that when I was 19 years old, my very first strongman contest. And from day one, I was tarnished with this brush of being this arrogant, overconfident, young kid who's got a chip on his shoulder and an attitude problem. But I always delivered. I delivered on everything I said. And then the week before, the week before UK Strongest Man, my very first sort of big win, again, I put a statement out on social media. I can't wait for next week when I get handed that trophy. And the amount of attack I got was just ridiculous. And I went and won it. Well, and then, the half-ton deadlift, I think, was the most hate I'd got. It was sort of ridiculous, but through that process, I'd set world records in the deadlift already. I'd done British records in log press and whatever else. And then, I got to the world's strongest man. And even when I'm at the world's strongest man, I'm getting all this negativity. Oh, he'll never win it. He'll never do that. But the deadlift, it was surreal. The amount of hate and negativity was just out of this world. I couldn't describe. I wish I could go back and show you like all the comments that followed all these posts and statements. But
that would hurt a lot of people. They would be thinking about that stuff when they're on stage and they have to get to the business, but not for you. You use it as fuel. And then the day of, you went somewhere else.
I do. So do you want me to talk over sort of the 500, how it happened and how it all came about?
I would love to hear it.
Yeah, okay. So back in 2015, I pulled a world record. So I pulled a world record deadlift in 2015. It was 463 kilos. So I owned the world record. And then I went to the promoters after the show and I said, I want to pull 500 kilo.
Is this the one you did in front of Arnold Schwarzenegger?
No,
this
is a few months later.
A few months later. Okay,
yeah.
Right. But that had happened a couple kilos less within.
Yeah, 1 kilo less.
1 kilo less
so
in front of Arnold.
462 in front of Arnie.
Okay, and there's some great footage in your documentary movie where Arnold's right there.
Oh yeah.
And him yelling helped. You think?
It did. It did. Okay. Well, the Arnold story was pretty good. I competed in the Arnold Classic Ohio in 2015. This is my very first big international show since I became a pro strongman. And I flew out to Ohio. I did a whole week of competing, really brutally heavy contest, the heaviest contest on the planet. And I came sixth out of, at the top 10 in the world. And I was very down, very distraught and, very upset with myself. I just not long quit my job and sold my security business to sort of follow this journey of becoming, the strongest man in the world. And I'd let myself down. And I'm packing my suitcases, getting ready to go home from Ohio. And then one of the promoters rings me up and sort of says, how would you feel about coming to Arnold's Classic Melbourne in Australia, and redeeming yourself? So I'm, okay, well, when is it? Well, it's this weekend. I'm like, oh, fucking hell, okay. So I packed my bags and get my plane ticket off to Australia I go. It was, all in all, it was about a 40-hour journey to get from Ohio to Melbourne. And I get there and I'm having my evening meal the day before the contest, and then the promoter rings me up again. We've got Arnold Schwarzenegger coming to the Strongman Arena at 11 a.m. tomorrow morning. We want to do something special. So I'm like, okay, what do you want to do? Well, kind of thinking, you could pull a world record deadlift. And I'm like, oh, well, Jesus Christ. But then I remembered 6 months earlier, I'd pulled a world record deadlift and dropped it and got disallowed the lift. So I thought, hell, I'm going to do it. So I signed up for it. 11 a.m. the next morning, go for all the warm-up lifts, and there's 462 kilos on the bar. Everyone's waiting around. Arnold's a no-show. So, you know, I say to the promoters and the referees, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to do it now. Arnold or no Arnold, it's gonna happen within this next 5 minutes, or else I'm not gonna pull it. So I get strapped onto the bar, start rocking this bar back and forth, and lean back, lean forward, start pulling this bar up, and then I just see this purple pair of loafers just appear on my right hand side, and the whole crowd atmosphere just changes, that it erupts. Anyway, I lock this deadlift out, and the referee gives me the down signal. I'll throw it down, and I just throw my straps off, celebrate with the crowd. Arnold was right there. He went to give me a high five, and I completely ignored him because I was too big time. Only kidding. So I'm just celebrating with the crowd, going off my nuts, and then I just sort of zone in. Arnold's right there, and we sort of walk over, and 3 of my life goals at this point in time were, number 1, to win the world's strongest man, number 2, hold the world record deadlift, and number 3, meet, shake hands, and make friends with Arnie Schwarzenegger. So I just killed 2 birds with 1 stone. And once I'd done the lift and realized Arnold was there, I went back over, we did the old Predator handshake, and it's like, Eddie, you monster, it was amazing, oh my God, you're so great. He was it was just a proper, unreal sort of life moment to do a world record deadlift and have Arnold there to sort of spur me on and be there for that moment.
Why Arnold Schwarzenegger? Why was he so important to you?
He's always been my childhood hero. I think my earliest memory I can ever remember is being 5 years old, watching the Terminator 2. And the memory is that I was sitting in my living room watching TV, and Arnie Schwarzenegger walks into a bar butt naked, kicks the shit out of about 20 outlaws, and then walks out with a new set of levers and rides off on a motorbike. And to me, that imprinted on me for the rest of my life. I wanted to be that action hero. I wanted to be the guy with the muscles and who was the movie star. And from that day forth, I just saw Arnold as an absolute hero inspiration. And, you know, I really followed his life story, his career, and his sort of struggle that he went through to come up through Austria, and, you know, going through the army and then going to America and breaking into Hollywood, and all the struggles and all the business and everything that he did to get there. It's an amazing story, and it inspired me throughout my whole sort of childhood. From 5 years on, it inspired me. And
the way that you probably mess with people's heads, and that
Yes.
you go Hollywood a little bit too.
Yeah, you have to, you know, and I think that there's a lot of, I mean, back in the day, there's no denying it. You know, you look at Arnold on his early documentaries, on his early sort of tapes, he was very, very arrogant. And you always relate successful people, very successful people, especially the Hollywood sort of guys, they tend to be quite narcissistic. You know, they think a lot of themselves. But I think that's a very good trait to have, as long as you know it, you understand it, and you can control it. And I think Arnold was that guy. He was the guy that thought, you know, I'm better than everybody else. And he would say it, and he would be so confident, and it would get in the heads of the other athletes, and they would deflate on stage. And I took a lot of that from Arnie and put it into the strongman. And there's one thing I learned from Arnold is there's a big difference between arrogance and confidence. So arrogance is thinking you're the better than everybody else. But then confidence is knowing that you're better than everybody else. But in order to be that confident guy, you've got to be arrogant. You've got to believe it before you become it. And that's what Arnold did. He believed it before it happened. And he was the master of that. He was the master of foreseeing his future. So that's one of the main things I learned from Arnie is almost to trick yourself. You know, you've got to believe yourself that you're going to be that big movie Holly star. You've got to believe that you're going to be the world's strongest man before you get there.
Can anyone do that, you think?
Well, I did it.
You did it.
I did it.
You did it consciously, and then it became unconscious.
It became a reality. Yeah, it became a reality.
It became real.
I believed it. You know, 19 years of age, I said I was going to win the world's strongest man. And at the time, you know, I'm a 19 stone kid. just started in strongman, and I'm out there, and yeah, you can look back on my social media, I got absolutely slated for it. I was that arrogant kid that everyone hated, coming up through the ranks, but I delivered. I believed it that much, I made it happen. And that's what I learned from Arnold, is to be that guy, to be that dreamer, to kid yourself until that dream becomes a reality.
Right. So you hit the deadlift, which was 460 what?
462.
62 in Melbourne.
Yes.
You had beat your previous record of 61?
No, well,
No.
I mean, even though I pulled 461, because I dropped it, I got disallowed the lift.
Right.
And that's what made me sort of go on and do this deadlift in front of Arnold. And then I think 3 months later, I pulled 463 for a new world record. And this is where the 500 kilo started, where I believed that I could pull 500 kilo off the floor. And that's when I started putting the statements out. So as I say, once I pulled the 463 at the World Deadlift Champs 2015, I went to the promoters and said, I want to pull 500 kilo.
How do you get to 500? But how do you even do that in your mind? What made you think, you know what?
It was that magic number, I mean, when I pulled, in 2015, when I pulled 463, I was, I think, 26 years old, I think. Would that be right? Born 1988. Jeez, my maths isn't that good.
Yeah, you're 31 now, so yeah, 27, 26.
27.
Yeah, okay.
27 years old. And I just thought, you know what? The deadlift world record has gone up 20 kilos in the last sort of 20 years. It's gone up a kilo a year. And I thought, it's never going to get anywhere. And I thought, I could do that. I could do the next 20 years, I could do a kilo a year for the next 20 years. But when does the point come where you're not strong enough to do what you're capable of? And I thought to myself, I'm capable of pulling 500 kilo off the floor, so why would I risk doing that opportunity in my lifetime just for money, just for that, doing a world record every year? And I thought to myself, let's up the ante. Let's step it up. Let's go for something special. The first man to pull 1,000 pounds is a man called Andy Bolton, and he is a legend in the strength industry. But I wanted to do something even more extraordinary. I want to be the first man to pull half a ton, the first man to pull 1,100 pounds off the floor. And it just became so obsessive, Once I'd said it, that was it. I've committed, people have heard it. And I don't want to be the guy that said something and not backed it up, because to me, that guy is a dickhead. The guy that shoots his mouth and then never delivers, and I don't want to look like a dickhead. I want to be the guy that says something and delivers. So I set off on this journey to pull 500 kilo off the floor, and I'm 37 kilos away from the world record, which is, I think it was over 8%. It's like Usain Bolt taking nearly a second off the 100 meters. It's pretty special.
But you knew you could do it. Or you told yourself you knew you could do it?
I told myself I could do it. And if I'm being dead honest, I did it for money, but I did it for not a greed reason. I did it for money because I needed money to become the world's strongest man. And I don't think people realize that to be the top pro strongman, how expensive it is. I was spending £300 a week on food. I was doing at least £250 a week on physiotherapy. Another £300 a week on recovery treatments, like cryotherapy and hyperbaric chambers and shockwave treatments. I mean, all in, I was spending £800 a week on my body. And that's and when you say that, it's like fucking hell. But then when you actually break it down, people don't quite realize what that is. That's not the mortgage, that's not the wife, that's not the cars, that's just me. £800 a week to be a pro strongman. And my savings were quickly running out. And I thought, I saved up enough money to quit my job and sell the door business. And I thought, I'm never going to win the world's strongest man unless I can top my bank balance up and be able to take myself all the way. So it was for money. It was to fuel my career. And that was where the inspiration came from for the 500 kilo deadlift, was I needed the money to take myself to that number one spot.
Right, which you did, and I want to get to that
afterwards.
The day of, you got a big crowd in front of you. Again, a lot of people would have already seen the footage. What do you remember from that day?
The 500 kilo? Well, when I said it, and obviously, I set off on this year-long journey from 15 to 16, and exactly a year to train for it. And I went off in the gym, and I couldn't get anywhere near it. The most I ever pulled in the gym was 454 kilo. That's the most I'd ever pulled in the gym. So I go on this year-long journey, and I'm in the gym, and I'm pulling weights, and every week I'm getting more and more frustrated with myself. And then 6 months in, I'm like, shit, I've made a mistake here. I can't pull 500 kilo off the floor. But I'd surrounded myself with an amazing team of doctors, scientists, blood doctors, psychologists, hypnotherapists, you name it. I had this team around me. And it was a scientist that actually sat me down one day and just explained to me that you're never going to be able to lift that off the floor because the human body is not capable of lifting that off the floor. But there is one way. And he said, and this is what really broke it down for me, a day-to-day person who just takes the kids to school, does the shopping, goes to work, has access to about 50% of their muscle fibers. Somebody who trains 20 hours a week, maybe a little bit more, has access to at most 65 to 70% of their muscle fibers. But then you get a woman who's driving down the motorway in a big accident, the kids under a car, and they can lift the car off of the kids. She has access to 100% of the muscle fibers. And why is that? It's the fight or flight scenario. And it's just a massive release of hormone, adrenaline. And it's a natural thing. It's been proven. It's a natural thing that people can do extraordinary feats of strength when they're put in a scenario. And it can't be faked. You can't click a finger and release it. It can't be faked. The only way to get it out of you is for someone to get a gun to your head, live or die, pull that weight off the floor. And obviously I can't do that on the day. I can't get someone to put a shotgun to my face and say, pull that 500 kilo.
I'm sure you could maybe call a few people.
So that's the scenario I had to create in my head.
Okay.
And with a psychiatrist, with a hypnotherapist, we worked together and we got it to a point where I was able to create a scenario in my head that when I walked up to the 500 kilo, I wasn't lifting 500 kilo off the floor. To put it in retrospect, I was lifting a car off of my kids. And that's the only way I was able to do that lift. I had to train my brain to put myself in this scenario. That wasn't the scenario I got in my head, by the way. I'm just giving you an example.
Okay.
The actual scenario is something that I cannot talk about because it's very dark, very deep, very disturbing. But it's something that triggered me. It's something that after months and months and months of talking about the worst scenario you could possibly be in and creating a pinch point on the back of my hand just before I walk out to the crowd, that put my body and mind in this different place. And when I got strapped onto the bar, I get my straps on and I'm sort of rocking it back and forth. And just before I lift, I close my eyes, completely shut, they're shut tight, and I just start lifting. And I watch the footage back and it's actually quite scary to see because my eyes open, but I'm not looking at anything. My eyes open, not on purpose. And my eye colour changes. And you can see it on camera, my eyes change colour. And I pull and pull and pull, and I don't remember doing the lift at all. All I remember is waking up at the top of the lift. And the reason is, I wasn't in that arena. I was off on that motorway lifting a car off my kids. It was such a hard thing to do. And it really, to do that, to lift that half a ton off the floor and put your mind elsewhere was the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. It really was, mentally, more than physically.
Had you practiced that before that night? Or you
No.
can't really practice it?
No,
Because once you
can't.
practice it, the juice isn't there anymore.
This is the thing. Once you've done it once, it's gone. It's done. You can't do it again. You can only do it once. It's a really tricky thing to do. So like the months of training leading up, I'm doing all these lifts in the gym and I never went above 450. But I'm doing my routine, I'm stamping up and down the gym, I'm hiding in the toilets, pretending that's the toilet in the arena. And then I kick the door off the hinges, come out, stomp into the center of the gym like it was the arena, and I'm ripping onto the bar and I'm attacking it. Everything's exactly the same. I'm doing the same touches. I'm doing everything. And that was all just practice. That was all going through the motions, getting my body through the motions, making sure everything's in line, making sure it touches my shin, making sure the straps are right, making sure the suit's right. But until I actually got locked onto that bar and I started pulling and my eyes shut, that's when I blacked out. And that's when I just woke up at the top of the lift and sort of looked around and just that pure enjoyment for that split second. And then bam, bar goes down, I go down with it. I was conscious. I remember my only sort of memory is I'm looking down at the ground and I can just see a puddle of blood just forming very quickly. Like a good litre of blood on the floor, and it was just pissing out my nose, like unreal, coming out my face. And the guy sit me up, get my shirt off, get my suit off, and then the blood pressure just hits my head and I go unconscious again. So, and I'm in and out of consciousness, so I'm convulsing. You can see it on the video. I'm in and out of consciousness and I'm twitching like this. And everyone's just holding me, just like, fucking hell, I'd calm down. And after about 15, 20 seconds, I come to again. And then someone just whispers in my ear, Ed, just get up and make it look easy. So, of course, I get up and do a little speech to the crowd. And then I get backstage and bam, out again. I'm on a hospital bed, I'm on a trolley. The ECGs are on me, and the paramedics are saying, oh, we can't get the machine to work. And then 2 minutes later, we'll try again. 2 minutes later, oh, it's not working. We'll try again. And by the fifth time when the paramedics are saying they can't get a heart reading, there's something wrong, So they couldn't get my beats per minute was over 200. So my heart was going like this.
Super dangerous.
Super dangerous. Yeah. Blood pressure was unreadable. He said that the blood pressure machine wouldn't even take a reading. It was that high. And I went blind in the middle of my eye. So, when you get you ever had arc eye from welding or anything?
It burns out your
So
eye.
I had like an arc eye. So I couldn't see in the center of my eyes. I had like a dark part. I couldn't see the outside. So everywhere I looked, I was just looking at black spots. And it took me about 3 hours to sort of calm down, get the heart rate down. My vision came back. And, I had blood coming out my tear ducts. I had blood coming out my ears, just little drips. And basically, I just blew my brain.
Your brain was bleeding too.
Yeah, I just blew my brain up, basically. All the blood was just coming out of everywhere. Look like I recovered. 3-4 hours later, I was back out. I was doing meet and greet with the fans. I was signing T-shirts, doing pictures. And then the next day, I got up to drive home, and I forgot how to drive my car. So I had to get my old man to come and drive my car back.
Were you as calm as this when all this is happening?
Yeah, I've got a good grip of life, But
when you can't figure out how to drive a car.
I didn't feel comfortable enough to get in and drive on the right side of the road and use the controls. I had to get someone come and drive my car back. And then the next day was back to reality. It was my son's birthday party and a massive party at my house for my son. And we get home and all the family and friends are there and my kids' friends and whatever. And I can't remember anybody. I'm talking to people and I'm like, and then after I'm saying to the wife, who the fuck is that? That's your sister-in-law, or that's your nephew, that's your cousin. I'm like, oh my God. And I'm having conversations with people and then walking away, coming back, having the same conversation. I the same symptoms as concussion.
Okay.
For 2 weeks after, I was stuttering, like my speech, I couldn't get words out. So, and I saw specialists, and I didn't go for an MRI in the end, but he said, if this doesn't improve in 2 weeks, you're in trouble. Because basically you burst something in your head, and if it doesn't heal and go back to the way it is, you could be in some big trouble. But it just, every day just got better. 2 weeks, I was fine. But that's actually how dangerous it was. It was super, super dangerous.
Would you do it again?
Yeah, I'd put more weight on. Definitely.
You'd put more weight on. How much more would you put on?
I think I'd like to do 5'10".
5'10".
5'10". I lifted 500 very comfortably.
It was comfortable.
Very, very comfortable.
Watching yourself, you can look at the mechanics and say that's comfortable.
Yeah, I think I lifted 500 very comfortably. I could have done more. My mistake was holding it at the top of the lift and smiling to everybody. And that was the big up yours to all the haters, all the negativity, all the people that said it couldn't be done. That 4 seconds of holding it there was an up yours to them, but it was that 4 seconds that absolutely destroyed me.
Caused all the bleeding in the brain.
If I'd let it get, if I'd have been given the down signal and just dropped it, I probably had no problems whatsoever. It was the holding it at the top that messed me up.
And was it hard to hold it at the top? It was a strain.
Really hard.
Really hard.
Really hard. I empower any strongman, any bodybuilder, anyone that goes to the gym that trains 20 plus hours a week doing strength training, get 500 kilos on a bar, get it in a rack and just lift it 1 inch and tell me, no one could do it. No one could even lift it an inch. It's a ridiculous amount of weight. Ridiculous.
And so ultimately it was that dark place you went, and it wasn't your kids under a car. Because if you can tell me that, then...
It wasn't that. But that's the best way to explain it to people.
Okay. And you'll never go there again, or you can't go there again.
I can't. Oh, well, I mean, I could try. You know, I reckon I could, but I wouldn't have I don't think it'd have the same effect. Because it's that... Once something happens to you twice, I think you get used to it, you know, even if you don't want to.
And in training, you kind of knew where you were going to go in your brain, but you never really went all the way to the dark place. And when you're on that stage, you went all the way there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, as I say, it was a really tough thing to do, really hard. And I've tried to talk about it with people and I just break down in tears. I can't talk about it.
Okay. All right, fair enough. And the next day, you're at this party. You've said that's when sometimes the depression comes in. My goal's done.
Yeah, yeah.
What's that like?
So, I think you'll find with most top athletes in any sport, they have this massive high when they're at the top, you know, winning gold medals, setting world records, representing the country, and then the next day, they've got to go back to reality. You know, that high, that euphoria doesn't last forever. And it's been well documented, you know, sports people have some really bad mental problems once they've been successful. Is what do they do? What's life after success? And it's a hard thing to take, you know, like the next day I'm at my son's birthday party, you know, I'm picking up dishes and putting them in the dishwasher. You know, the day before, I just did the biggest lift in human history. And the next day, I'm there, you know, entertaining people at my son's birthday party.
And not many people cared, right?
Exactly. And that's the way it feels, you know? It's just like, you know, of course, everyone was there like, well done, amazing. But then once those are over, it's, you know, what's for dinner? What's, you know, have a beer, you know, go get me the Doritos, you know, it's back to reality. And then I suppose that's where it hits you, is when you've done something so great and so something so amazing. End of the day, it doesn't matter who you think you are, what you've done, you've still got to come back down to reality. And at the end of the day, you've still got to sit down and take a shit like everybody else. And that's when it hits you. That's when it hits. It's tough to take. You can train, you can push yourself, you can you can have all these dreams, but at the end of the day, you're no better than everybody else. And I think I realized that mostly after the 500 kilo deadlift. It really brought me back down to reality. And yeah, the dark thoughts come back, you know, they do come back because you've got to reset your goals again. You've got to reevaluate and attack life again. And it's tough, it's hard. You know, it's like being knocked back almost. Even though you're successful, it's like being pushed back again.
Yeah, whether you win or you lose, the depression still sets in, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Now, luckily, you still had one more big goal to accomplish, and that was to win the World Strongman. And before we get to there, I was wondering if we could find out why was that something that you ever wanted to do? When did that start? And were you always, 350 pounds?
So, again, one of my earliest memories is sitting around, it's always TV.
Isn't that amazing?
As with most people, I think.
Isn't that crazy how that can create, world records and giants?
Yeah.
Just something on a television?
Yeah, it's nuts. So one of my earliest memories, again, is sitting around a TV with the whole family, mum, dad, brothers, nana, granddad, all sitting around the TV at Christmas watching The World's Strongest Man. And I remember watching athletes like, retakes of like Jeff Capes and Bill Kazmaier, Magnus Verd Magnusson and Magnus Samuelsson and John Paul Sigmarsson. And these guys were just, you're looking on TV, especially as a young kid, they're like superheroes. These are guys that are pulling planes, pulling trucks, they're bending bars, they're lifting atlas stones. And I was mesmerized by it. And you know what really sort of solidified in my head was how mesmerized my mum and dad were. And that's when I realized that this is something special. And I remember saying to my mum and dad, one year we were watching Strongman at Christmas, I said, I'll be on there one day. I'll be at World's Strongest Man. And they all burst out laughing.
How old were you?
6 years old.
6 years old.
At most, yeah. And, I suppose I laughed along with them, but I think subconsciously it hurt my feeling. It dug deep. I was like, I've said I'm going to do something, and I've been pushed back. I've been negative, been shunted with negative comments again. And it's just more coal.
Which helped you.
It did.
Because if in these days, everyone would have been really nice and politically correct and said, Eddie, you can be anything you want to be, which means maybe you wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, which is what I'd probably say to my son now.
Right. And ruin his chance.
And probably ruin his chance. But I mean...
in a world where we're all super politically correct, right? And where people are asking, what is masculinity? You compete in something that is the ultimate display of masculinity. Do you think about that sometimes?
Yeah, it's...
Where everyone watches it, like you said, you saw your parents at 6 years old and they're fascinated by it. You can't fake that.
I think that's the beauty of strongman is people, no matter what, you can do fighting, you can do all sorts of different fighting and all sorts of different sports. But I think at the end of the day, the human race wants to know who's the alpha. And the World's Strongest Man, in my eyes, and as a child, that decided that fact. Who is the alpha? Whoever won the World's Strongest Man was the alpha of the world. And that's why it mesmerized me in a way, is I want to be that guy. I want to be the alpha.
And you said every man wants to be the alpha, true.
They do.
Right? Whether they want to admit it or not.
Whether they do or not.
Most would say, no, that's not true.
If somebody said to me, I'm not bothered. I wouldn't want to be the alpha, a guy. I don't want to be the alpha male on the planet. Fuck off. You lying piece of shit. Everyone wants to be the alpha. It's their dream to be the alpha. Maybe when the people get older and, get comfortable with their lives, they're not arsed. But I think a young man, ambition, what do I do in my life? Would you want to be the world's strongest man? If they said no, they're lying. They are lying. No doubt about it.
Okay.
Everyone wants to be the world's strongest man. For sure.
All right, and you did it 6, and yet your family was like, yeah, okay, maybe not, and that started putting the coal on the fire.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? My mum and dad are really special people, but they were always very negative with me. Very, very negative. And I got into my swimming, which I suppose was another sort of big segment of my life.
What was your stroke?
Freestyle.
Freestyle, all right.
Freestyle, yeah.
And you were good.
Very good. Yeah, and I think we were all pushed into a swimming, but it was more just to keep us good. We're all very, I suppose, very free brothers. With ADHD, we're all very energetic. We're all over the place. We needed to expend some energy, and I think the pushing us into the pool was easy. And
you said you have an old story about your first time in the pool when you were in Portugal. Yeah.
So
it's a fitting tale of who you are, isn't it?
It is. It really is. I was a national champion swimmer. I won the nationals 3 years in a row. I set British records. I was on the world-class potential squad, which is like the junior Olympic team. I was the best in the country by a mile as well, not just by a little bit. I was the best in the country for my age by an absolute mile. And that segment of my life got shut down. But I tell people about it, and people say, oh, how did you even get into swimming? And when I asked my mum, because obviously, I'm too young to remember that. I was like, how did I get into swimming? My mum was a swimming teacher, and my eldest brothers were good swimmers as well. And I was on holiday in Portugal, and this is how I started swimming. On holiday in Portugal, running and jumping in the pool, 2 years old, can't swim. And every time I'd jump in, somebody would have to fish me out because I was drowning. So my mum, my dad, my brothers, I think my grandma was there, kept fishing me out. After about 5 days in, the 1000th time I jumped in the swimming pool, my mum just stood on the edge of the pool, looked at me and just said, fuck you, sink or swim. And I swam. She said,
That's actually what she said.
That's the exact word she said. That's what she said. And I swam. She said, I just started swimming. I swam to the side and that's it. Jumped back in, swam back. Then I'm swimming more. And it was those words that when she told me those words, I was like, that just defines me all over. You know, it's you do two things in life, and this is very relative to me and my mental health, is you either sink, you dwell, you blame the world, you blame everybody else for your problems, and you fall, you crumble inwards, and and that's when people end their own lives and they kill themselves or they self-harm. Or you swim. You move forward, you set goals, you have ambitions, and you get up, you get out that hole, you stop blaming everybody, and you go and get what you want. And that I always use these words when I try and do my talks to people and everything. It's you sink or swim. You do one or the other. You've got to pick one. And obviously, there's only one right answer. There's only one you can pick. It's swim. Because if you don't keep swimming, moving forward in life, you're gonna do some bad things. You're gonna sink, dwell, and it's a very dark, horrible place if you start doing that. And a lot of people these days are in that position.
To continue watching the rest of the episode for free, visit our website londonreal.tv or click the link in the description below.